You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
So basically, the way that it works is now that we have such a wide audience, companies and businesses will pay us to promote their products and their services on our platform. Take a picture of me right here. Rory, sit, buddy. And since most of our videos are about Rory, the companies that reach out to us are usually pet products. And in the script, they wanted to have a wholesome element to it. So I'm just gonna need you to play with Rory and give him one of the treats, okay, Mom?
Hey, everybody, this is the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast with Ken Vellante, and super pleased to have, Matthew Kyle Levine. You are the most frequent guest on Something Rather Than Nothing podcast. Here's the official award, which is just a verbal award at this point. Welcome back to the show.
I had no idea. Well, thanks for having me.
Really love your work. And we got Kenny Sale, who is in the film on the phone, which we're going to talk about. Great name, Kenny. I think Ken's one of the best names in the world. Kenny, welcome onto the show.
Thank you so much. Yes, the names are top notch.
All right, we got that cleared out. But part of the reason, Matt, like on a show before, we've had I was looking through these kind of connections that we have in art and connected to the show with Liz Kiger, who you've done cinematography for, with Liz's tremendous productions, Victoria Studo, of course, with regards to her music and being in films, your films, Shea Glasheen, with music, and also appearing in your films. So, been around this world, which is really cool. You got a new film, and speaking about it in particular now, On the Phone, in Rain Dance Festival, which we got going on there, New York City. What is Rain Dance Festival? Hello, Matt. Tell us what Rain Dance Festival is and what's going on there in the big city.
Hey, yeah. Again, thanks for having me on. So Rain Dance is actually in London. So our world premiere is going to be, in the UK. So it's going to be an international premiere.
I didn't know. Hold up here. All right. Here I am assuming it was New York City. Not everything rotates around New York City, and I should know that. I'm from Rhode Island, right? I should know not everything rotates on the axis of New York, for fuck's sake.
Right.
London, holy shit! Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah, so we applied to all sorts of festivals in the U.S. and internationally, and the way it goes with festivals is you just apply and submit, and I think we submitted to like 40 different festivals, and you get a lot of no's, and you kind of think at a certain point, like, all right, maybe this is just going to live on YouTube or something like that. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden we got the email from Rain Dance, which was really like a top tier, top 5 choices of everything that we submitted to. So we didn't even think we'd get something this big. It's certainly the biggest film festival that I've ever been involved in. And we're excited about it. We only found out like a month and a half ago. They let everyone know like beginning of last month. And it's the 21st and the 23rd. On the 21st, it screens at 12:15. And on the 23rd, it screens at 12:45. And we're hoping to just have like a big turnout and really promote it and get everybody to come see it. And, I'm kind of outlining a feature film project that's a bit of a longer form version of this movie in a few ways. Not exactly the same characters or the same story, but kind of the same themes. And, just hoping to build some momentum and maybe get some funding and some, distributors interested in the project.
Yes, bunch to talk about there. My
Yeah.
brain was just catching up, and it's at the Piccadilly, the View Piccadilly. You're gonna be in Piccadilly Circus. It looks like the Piccadilly screen 4 on the 21st and the 23rd.
It's a really
Um,
cool theater. I'm excited to go. I've only been to the UK once before, actually, only a couple weeks ago for a shoot, which was kind of exciting just to I already have known that we were getting in and then to weirdly get asked to go do something out there. It was just like an interview shoot, but it was kind of nice to go like, check out the theater and see what the deal is. And it's a really nice, we couldn't have asked for a better premiere for the movie. So really excited for it.
World premiere. Congratulations on that. That's fantastic. When I went to London, there's this travel guide. It's called Guide to Weird London.
Mm.
And that's the last trip I went through. I did the Weird London guide. That's a weird ass city. That's a weird ass city. Fantastic city. I've been there a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
excited. Yeah, so excited. I'll tell you a little bit more about London. But all right. So on the phone, folks. So I would just say, like, as far as background, what we're talking about, like these themes that we all talk about, in technology, the combination of art and commercialism,
Yeah.
the personalities we see on the screen, and so. But all I'll say about on the phone for right now is that through Kenny's performance and Desi's performance, it escapes all the terrible territory of like, oh fuck, like I know phones bad, like people messed up because of phones, like
Right.
like and so in the area that it goes into and explores is so vibrant with, like, for me, philosophical themes of identity, who you are, making art, and such. um I want to ask you, Kenny, in your experience coming to this project, and being the lead actor in it. Like I said, very a beautiful performance. Matt has to look for performances. I've talked to him before because so much is said in the face and intonation and in sound. Kenny, what was this project like for you working on the phone and with Desi McGregor opposite you?
Well, first of all, Matthew and Desi were both incredible to work with. I was super excited about this project, and I was also very fortunate. I read a lot of auditions, and I would say like 70-80% of the time, it's not like a project that really excites me. And this one in particular, he gave me a huge monologue to read, and I was like, "Dear God, this is a massive monologue for the first audition." But I was really interested in kind of all the material that he sent me and all the details, and I was excited to read it, and I think that kind of helped me out a lot to helped everyone out a lot to kind of like feel for the film, I guess, if that makes any sense.
The funny thing about that monologue is that didn't end up in the movie itself.
Yeah, we
Actually,
didn't use it. Yeah,
I was
we
guessing
changed
that.
it,
I was guessing that in the background, but that was just me.
it was actually, just to touch on Kenny's performance, it was the hardest, character to cast, just because we wanted something very specific, and there was a lot, like you said, not in the dialogue, but more in the expression and in the vibe of the character. So when we did auditions, we only had a couple lines here and there to string together, and it felt like it wasn't telling enough of if we could dive into the soul and the personality of the character. So we figured if we did a monologue that really expressed maybe what was going on internally, we'd get a better idea of if this person's right for the role. And I remember kind of being at the end of my wit, like I'm going to have to reach out to, a casting director or something like that to find the right person. Like we literally couldn't find anybody that fit. I don't know why. It just wasn't working. And then we found Kenny just on backstage, and then it was like, oh,
yeah,
this
it
is
was so
definitely it.
random.
Yeah.
I wasn't even so that time period. I had been working on a project, and I was like living on set for almost 2 months straight, and I was hardly even looking at projects. And I just scrolled through Backstage one day, and I saw this, and I submitted to it. And then he reached out, and I was like, "Oh, this is great. Yeah, I'll just try this out and see what happens." And yeah, he wrote back and he was like super excited, and then he wanted me to read another part. And I was like, okay, great. You know, he's interested, and I love this project. And so I did this additional part, and I think he got back to me very fast. And he's like, oh man, this was incredible. I put the potential score that we have for the film like to this, and he's like, oh, yeah, I loved it. And yeah, and then we went from there and stayed in communication until we obviously shot.
Oh, great, Kenny. Speaking about the score too, Victoria Studio done the score, and when I talked to Victoria, we're talking fall of 2025.
Oh wow.
I'd seen enough of you. Seen enough of your work, and I had heard the score for this, and it was a prominent score, almost an emergent character within the film. Where
Yeah.
and so that piece was beautiful, successful, and felt a little bit risky too, just as far as the balance of sound
And it's
in your
very
work.
different from what we've usually done because we've done short films where there's no score at all,
Yeah.
just to kind of like heighten the realism of it and almost make it feel eerie and kind of cold. And then we've also done, like, I do score myself, and we've done a lot of like synthesizer score where it's more like tonal, not exactly musical. And me and Victoria just, we're producing this together just because we live together and, we kind of do everything together anyway. So if like I was going to run anything by someone, it would be her. And she's kind of been getting more and more involved in the film industry. So I thought it'd be a great thing to work on something together. And I just realized like she used to be a music teacher, so she can kind of play every woodwind instrument. Also, like she could do piano and guitar and like all sorts of stuff. So I was like, if we could just have her do all the tracks, we could potentially make it sound like we have an orchestra, even if we don't have the budget to get an orchestra. So she just did every track and made it sound like we had like a quartet of clarinet players, uh, even though we didn't. It was kind of like the magic of sound editing. And then as it grew, we were doing more tonal stuff, kind of like what we usually do with the synthesizers. And it eventually got to the point where we realized we wanted like more leads and harmonies and stuff like that. And I kind of like let her just take the reins on it. And yeah, it became like a character of the film in a way. It's the only part of the film I feel like where it kind of tells you what to think from a third person perspective. Because at the same time, we're like mostly in Desi's head, I think. So it was nice to have that element, and I think it also makes it stand out. That and the cinematography from Sean Dahlberg. We filmed everything on 16 millimeter, and he had a few tricks up his sleeve to kind of overexpose the film to make it feel almost like the way we were talking about it was like we wanted the film to feel like it was dug up, like in a time capsule or something like that, to make it really feel like
Mm.
it's old. And then I think the woodwinds kind of worked into that too to make it feel like it had a kind of a vintage like 70s aesthetic. So our whole goal with this thing from a like an aesthetic, and like vibe perspective was to really make it feel like it was an old science fiction movie that accurately predicted now, to kind of heighten the absurdity of the whole thing.
Hot dang, hot dang. What is it about? I'm gonna have a question for you, Kenny. It's gonna be one of the philosophical questions. So you gotta, yeah, I know. Um, Matt, what about All right, so I watch your films, and let's talk about this one in particular. And I think what's fun talking philosophy and trying to talk about art is capture the words without giving anything away. But like, there's this the woods that these characters in with this suburban environments. There's like this loneliness that emanates from it, and
Mhm.
the big trees. I think in upstate New York, and I'm out in Oregon, so I think of trees and how you feel in the trees and that vibe.
Yeah.
Um, speaking of the sound as a character, but just like the place always when you use that, how what are you trying to evoke there? Like, and why does it feel like a bit lonely, modern, anxious as a nature of being?
Yeah.
Like
There's a
what the heck?
Well, I have an interesting relationship with upstate New York because I live in upstate New York, but I lived in the city for about 2 to 3 years in Brooklyn. And around COVID, I was kind of getting more editing work than shooting work, so I was like, why not get 10 times the space for half the price? So I kind of made the jump to do that, and then I did find that it's like it felt like there's a whole world in the city that I'm like missing out on, even though I would go back to shoot. but then at the same time I felt like there was like a freedom and like more of a back to basics kind of grounding feeling of being in nature. So I feel like as like a modern person living outside of a city or living in somewhere that's like more affordable, but also, you know, there's the pros of it being more beautiful. It just creates kind of an interesting dialogue, at least for me in my mind, of like, you know, what is the effect of living in a more urban area versus a more rural area, and what does the contrast do to a person? So I thought that these characters would be an interesting thing to explore, because even though it's not said directly, I think there's a general vibe that these characters are kind of like Brooklyn people or Brooklyn artists, Brooklyn content creators, and they that's at least what we did in the backstory anyway, or what we settled on. And then they kind of travel up to visit her mother, and then I think there's a little bit of like a shock to like, wait a minute, now that we're leaving the frenzy of the city, who are we and what are our identities, and what are we doing here? And I think the context of being out of the city almost makes what they're doing feel more absurd to them. And hopefully in the movie, that corporate kind of mentality of like, let's build a brand and all this kind of stuff seems a bit sillier in a more, you know, nature environment. And a lot of things just kind of worked out to our advantage. I think, Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't we originally going to shoot this in the warmer months, and then you
Yeah,
weren't quite free?
we pushed it a little bit because I remember something about you had spoken about the leaves and maybe how you wanted kind of the leaf changing,
Yeah.
kind of getting into fall, and
So I think
you know
it was written originally. There was even scenes that involved, like the summer. Like there was like a specific scene that we threw away where, you know, there was you could just really tell the aesthetic of like them, you know, being sweating and kind of overworking themselves, and it had that kind of like Dog Day Afternoon energy to it. But then because of scheduling, we moved it, and then I realized that like that was going to help the movie even more because there now was this feeling of decay. It was like a little past, you know, when the leaves change and everything looks perfectly pretty, everything looks a bit more bare. And I think that only pushes the story a little bit further along, that there's this feeling of emptiness to what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know
Oh,
what it would look like with I don't know, with it being more lush and like
Yeah.
vibrant, even
I don't
more
think it
colorful.
wouldn't have fit.
Would
Yeah. There's
would
supposed to
stand
be an
on its own.
element that like there's like a dystopian quality to it. And I think that really, it worked. So a lot of things came together really luckily with this one.
that's art, right? Kenny, talking about art. Talking about art. I want to just talk to what question I asked about is identity, and for you, you know, as a creator, you know, was there a moment for you that you saw yourself as an artist, you know, as an actor, and what was that moment?
Do you mean in this film or like in life in
In
general?
general, in life, like where you're like, shit, like you're shifting in identity, inhabit it.
Um, I don't know if there's like a particular instance that I could like properly define for it. I did a couple church plays when I was like a little kid, but that was kind of like the extent of my entertainment industry, I suppose I would say. I think there's been like an essence of me like performing and kind of um, my upbringing a bit. I like, you know, being excited to be like outgoing and maybe charismatic and talking too much and getting yelled at by teachers. And um, I think I was kind of like more or less thrust into the entertainment industry, and then I really enjoyed it, acting specifically. I started off doing modeling, and then that it's not like really my thing, but it kind of gave me an avenue or an outlet to get into acting. And I guess this specific moment that I do remember is when I did have I had an audition, and it was one of my first ones ever. They gave me a cold read, and I had no idea what a cold read even was. This is like how new I was to the acting world, and they just gave me an entire 2 pages of papers, and I like lost my shit. I didn't know what to do with this, and I was like, how am I supposed to memorize this in 5 minutes? And I went in there, and the lead actor had already been cast, and he's going through, you know, his lines, kind of
Yeah.
paraphrasing, and I'm just like losing my mind. And he kind of feeds me a line, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Do you want some bacon, Dad? And he's like, yeah, I'd love it. And then that was kind of the end of the audition, and everyone was very nice. There's the producers and the director were all in the room. They're like, thank you so much. Like, great work, great job. And I knew I'd absolutely no way I was getting that part. And it was so terrifying, and I was so anxious and nervous. But then once I left the audition, I was like, wow, I know that was terrible, but I absolutely love that, and I want to keep doing it. And that was kind of, I guess, we got there eventually, but that's I guess maybe the defining moment for me.
I love that. I think, well, not your experience, not having to like necessarily go through that, but
I think every actor has that at least once.
Yeah, you're just thrust into it. But what one other piece I wanted to ask you, Kenny, and on the show I ask it's kind of like, motivation, like, and intention, and like in creating art, right? And one of the things I've been talking to Matthew for a while, really enjoy the films and the work that Matthew has done. But there's also like I'm interacting with, I wouldn't even say just like creators as a word, but artists, and like creating something. For you, Kenny, like if you're looking like to create to create a like a work of art, like and I would say refer to on the phone, but like the film or the painting, what is that for you? What is art for you? Like what is that you're trying to do?
Yeah, that is a deep question. It's a tough one. uh, what is art for me? In a broad sense, I guess. So we don't have to spend 3 hours on this podcast. I suppose it would be trying to create, or in some sort of way fabricate, in, I think, a collaborative way, something that speaks to somebody and furthers a conversation. Obviously, not everyone's going to like the things that you create or you make, but that's not necessarily what it's about. I think if you can make things that people want to talk about, and it makes them think and want to understand, or have an opinion that's a little more than surface level, I think that's part of what creating art should be, or is. And there's a lot of very controversial pieces of art, film, paintings, sculpture, music, that a lot of people don't like, but it still furthers the conversation and the discussion, whether it's like a political aspect or philosophical or ethical one. I think that's kind of what I would consider art, and I think that's also a responsibility of any given artist to go out and create, in attempts to stay away from the commercial side and the capitalistic side, which is a whole different conversation. But I think that's part of the obligation of an artist, as to kind of further discussions.
Yeah, and there's a lot
Thanks,
to be
Kenny.
said about the oh, sorry, Ken. I was just gonna say there's a lot to be said about the
Yeah.
communal element as well. Like I think me and Victoria were talking about this, and like we're really excited about the festival, and we're really excited that people are gonna see it. But we feel like nothing really compares to the doing of it and the meeting with the similar minded people, which is really important to me. I really would rather work with someone with less experience who is more interested in the project than it speaks to them, than someone who's maybe extremely well regarded or like really busy, and but they're just phoning it in, uh, I think there's something special when like-minded people come together and kind of further the dialogue. It almost makes the piece itself better. Like I think the script that I had originally before I cast Desi and Kenny was one thing, and then it kind of, with conversations with the two of them, bloomed into something else. And then even on set, like the night before, we sat at a table and just like went over the script one more time, and there was still moments where I was like, actually cross that out, or like, do you feel weird saying that? Then just don't say it that way. Say it another way. And then we kind of, I think, get at something more organic by leaving that room for interpretation open. And I think we all kind of felt like we had the space to kind of do our own roles, which I like to do. I like to leave everybody kind of their space to do their thing, because I think it just becomes more authentic and we get more perspectives. And I think what we settled on was something that was fairly different than the original idea, but it speaks more true to the themes than what I was originally expecting. And I think there was more empathy for the characters, where at first it was honestly, it felt to me anyway, with my intention of writing it, it was a little bit funnier at first. It had more of like a look at these two absurdist kind of influencers that are just kind of silly doing this thing that doesn't mean anything, to kind of getting closer to, why are they doing this? Why do they think it's important? And what is maybe bothering them that they're running from to focus so much on this and to take it so seriously? And I think by the end, you could see that all the characters, even though it's such a short film, have they have a bit of an arc where they do realize something, where there's a little bit of a mirror reflected at themselves. And I think that came through because we all, in that moment when making it, had a mirror reflected to ourselves. Because for me, at least, it's a very personal project. Like I make social media content for people, for, clients. I'll do video production and, sound work and stuff like that. And I think even I wanted to get down to like, why am I so driven to do what I do and, to make films, but also why are these people that I'm working with so driven to express themselves? So it all became kind of a reflection on art, and yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Yeah. No, thanks for. Well, I mean, there's always like, and I think in community terms and like in creation and such, and a lot of folks I talk to, you know, uh, I've worked a little bit in film, but it is enough for me to really fully understand the difficulty of converging the type of things that you talk about and having those come together in that way, which is why things can take much longer, and
Right.
just to put it all together, as opposed to I talk about on the show some of the singular activities that you could do and nobody's in the way, and you might get lonely in that territory and not know where you're going. So
Right.
it's a mix and a balance. Festival, Rain Dance, London, screening June 21st, June 23rd.
Yeah.
What is, I mean, I know what a film festival is, but like for somebody going, what types of films are these? International? They all short films, longer films? What's going on with the
So yeah.
atmosphere overall?
Yeah, it's a mixture of features and shorts, and it goes over the course of like 10 days or something like that. And I think the idea that they're pushing is that for like a pretty low price, you could just get a pass for the entire thing. So you can go every day, and, films play literally from, I think, like 10 in the morning to midnight or something like that. And there's, little breaks in between, and, there's free little like networking lunches and, just opportunity. There's panels where, different crew members or actors will kind of come on from the films themselves to talk. There's like journalists there that are like looking to do like little things like this, like podcast interviews there and everything like that. So it's more than just going to see films. It's kind of like going to be a part of like a whole film community, which is really exciting. And for us, for short films, they do like a shorts block so that it still occupies the amount of time that a feature would be. So it's like 2 hours worth of short films that play in a designated spot, and ours starts at 12:15 and 12:45. And then afterward there's a Q&A, and then you can obviously talk to the filmmaker afterward, or you could talk to the audience and have a bit of a dialogue there. So it's really cool. I mean, I've done smaller festivals than this, and it's always so exciting to be able to talk about your work with like-minded people. But in this specific situation, I think there's more industry people there, and there's more opportunity to kind of like leverage yourself and maybe build future collaborations along the road with people that now have discovered you because they liked your movie. So it's a great kind of platform to just build a career, but also to maybe have more creative experiences like the one that we had.
Matt, you talking in talking about on the phone and thematically some of the themes you bumped into this and talking about expanding that out. Did you have any comments around that as far as developing some of the ideas we talked about on out further in the future?
Yeah. So you're talking about the developments of the themes for this film?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting discovery where this idea came from. I won't mention the person's name, but I work for a social media influencer from time to time. And they specifically, it's very dark. They wanted to, their mother was sick and she was in the hospital. And he called me kind of feverish. And I think there was element where, I could tell that he was stressed about that dark family crisis, but also what he said was so polar opposite to what you would expect, which was, you should come with your camera to the hospital and you should film me talking with my mom. And then, maybe we'll get some really deep emotional moments where I'm crying or this and that. And I was so kind of shocked by the idea that someone would want to milk their own tragedy to gain popularity online. And I realized that there's like a bit of not to knock what people do. Like, I know a lot of influencers that are great people, but still it just, the idea of that kind of it made me realize that it's an addiction more so, or just as much as like we are addicted to phones and being on the phone. I think when you are an influencer and you're creating content and you don't know where your career is going to go, and you just feel like, I have to put everything into this and I have to be as raw and authentic as possible and almost build an online brand and identity that can be marketable. I think it ends up kind of, for some people anyway, kind of leaking into other parts of your life. And next thing you know, you want your entire life to be like a reality TV show, which I think kind of hinges on maybe a deeper problem that we might have in the society of like lacking community because of technology. So it's kind of like this loop that I thought was very interesting. And I feel like I've seen movies and shows about influencers, but none that actually kind of touch on this idea of, when is it too much? Where's that line where you're kind of crossing the line in terms of like revealing your own life, and it kind of causing like a bit of a spiritual disruption for you. So that's that. And then go ahead.
No, I just like on that. I think of like in philosophy for me, it's always like those aspects of identity that are there that are so fascinating, and like how to inhabit identities. And there's a sequence in on the phone. McKenny in character says, it's you're supposed to be this. You're happy. Like this is what you are. And if you're
Right.
not portraying that, there's nothing.
Right.
There's nothing there. So,
which is funny because it's so ironic there, because he's saying, don't be who you are right now. You have to be the version of yourself that, yeah, I love that one line that Kenny does where you can almost, I think that was improvised, but he kind of is trying to give us a little bit of a monologue to her, like a pep talk, where he's like, you should be, happy and confident. And people like that kind of, Lily's the character's name. People love seeing that Lily that's happy and confident and plays with her dog and blah, blah, blah. And then he tries to kind of say more to it and then just realizes like, I need to hit this home. So he repeats it again. And he's just like, people want to see the Lily that's happy and confident, like almost kind of hammering it. Like, why don't you understand that? Like, you have to cut out what you're doing right now and just be what we've established, which is almost his character's admission that, we're not being authentic anymore, which then defeats the purpose.
well
associate.
done. Well, yeah. Well.
What'd you say?
Well,
Nothing. It's kind of a little bit borderline socio.
Yeah, no, totally a sociopath. Yeah, I remember being on set and like with each scene kind of realizing like, man, it's going to be hard to have any empathy for your character. Each scene is a little like, oh, he's terrible. But I think for this movie specifically,
I remember we talked about that actually.
Yeah. That was kind of fun to just be like, what, let's just lean into it. Like, in a lot of ways, your character is like the antagonist. But I think that was fun with this one because we knew that we were doing something absurdist. Like, I don't want to give away where it goes, but it gets to a point where this is clearly not, it's so elevated that it's not something that would hopefully ever happen, what they do for content purposes. And I think that only highlights it even more if you go to the extreme. So for all the characters, we were able to go more extreme than maybe what you'd expect, just to really emphasize the issue.
I was thinking so much about like for me, I thought, and I mentioned this before, Matt, in the films, like thinking about sequential photographs and thinking about there's some photograph painting stills like in this movie, but there's almost like
the cinematography is so good. Yeah,
there's almost like human glitches at the end too. And folks, make sure you watch On the Phone. We're talking a whole bunch about it in world premiere in about a week. But there's these stills, and then the movement of the humans at the end is still human, but it's fucking human glitchy, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. So I like
We
that.
really, we like the idea of that. The analogness that, or whatever you want to call it, that you get from the film kind of adds a scratchy, organic feel to it, which I think only contrasts more to them trying to be polished and perfect. So like there's constantly those two things kind of battling each other. So yeah, Sean and I, the cinematographer, worked really hard on kind of trying to establish something like a visual look that was both really beautiful, like, and very well framed. Like there's a specific shot where the two characters are like in the middle of a tunnel of trees that's also in a larger frame, so it has this very painterly kind of look to it. And we also wanted to emphasize not showing the phone as well to make it seem even more otherworldly and alien. So we don't really see the screen of a phone at any point in the movie. So there was a few ideas that we had to emphasize these themes and to make it seem even more strange than it might seem if you saw it in person.
No, well done, well executed. Always look forward to each of your films, and actually, genuinely deeply excited. Over there in London and worldwide for the worldwide premiere of On the Phone to be seen. Matthew, Kyle, Levine, where do folks go for their info, the Vimeo? Where do folks look around for your films and the work, your body of work that you do?
Yeah, I recently worked like 3 days in a row on a website, which was extremely difficult for me to do. It took a lot of time, but I'm glad that I have it now. So it's MatthewKyleLevine.com. There's a page for On the Phone, but obviously it's just the trailer because we can't show the film because it's it's going to have its premiere. But you can actually see all the films going back to 2019 with our film Miss Freelance that was in the Williamsburg International Film Festival. So now all these movies are kind of back online and all in one spot, and you could see it with the poster and the trailer, and you could read the reviews. And Ken, even our episodes are in those pages as well, so you can kind of do a deep dive on everything, see some behind the scenes photos and whatever. So if you want to kind of brush up on any of the other films, which I hope people would, you could see it all there. And then if you're not in London, that's okay, because I hope we're going to have more festival screenings in the US and some in New York, hopefully a couple in New York.
And Kenny, where do folks find? I mean, again, straight up in this film, striking work. And it's different type of work. And I'm not a film expert or anything. I obsess about film, but it's a different thing you have to do in this film. Well done. Where do folks go, like to find you? The work that you do. Where you're around, that type of thing.
Yeah, I just have an Instagram page. Really, I don't. I haven't created anything that's. I try to stay offline as much as I can, but pretty much all my work, I just use Instagram for that. So it's just Instagram.com @KennySale. Yeah, that's the majority of it, other than some casting websites, but that's about it.
Staying offline as much as possible. It's so out of character.
Yeah, no,
it's so great. You really had to completely do the polar opposite. Yeah.
I had to really detach myself from what I became.
Right.
I went through the apocalypse now experience of this filming, and I will not be on social media.
Yeah, some people have told us that the most recent person that watched it was someone who was potentially interested in getting funding together for us, which was highly appreciated. And they were like, I loved it, but I also felt sick after watching it. I wanted to throw my phone in the garbage. So we're kind of, I don't know if we're promoting, not using your phone or whatever, but those kind of visceral reactions are great. So, it's almost a horror movie in that way. So I hope you feel kind of bad about it afterward.
You pay your money. You pay is not for perfect satisfaction and on harmony. I remember, I forget if I told you before, found footage horror movies, when they're well executed, trip the hell out of me. Like I get scared as shit. And I remember when I saw, it was like Blair Witch Project, and I'd seen it, when I was out in the theater. I walked out in the parking lot. I was scared shitless. I'm happy to say it out loud. Yeah. I was like, my first thought was like, are other people needing help?
Yeah.
walking out of the fucking theater. And I've seen a billion movies, but every once in a while, and whatever that unsettling feeling, I've always kind of gone for it as well. So
I saw that movie when I was way too young. I think I like rented it from the library when I was 10 just because I heard that it was like a super popular movie or whatever. And my sister convinced me as like a prank that like this is real. This is a real thing that happened. So I watched it just feeling like I was watching people just get tortured and, you know, ultimately that crazy ending, you know, I after that I was like, that was like one of the movies for sure that made me want to make movies because like what an impact this can have. And honestly, when I found out that it was fake, it was even more inspiring, or, you know, not fake, but it was fiction. It was even more inspiring to be like, wow, you could really create a scenario that can move someone so deeply. And it's funny you mentioned Blair Witch because Blair Witch premiered at Raindance, actually. So it's
what?
Funny coincidence.
Look at that. Full circle.
Yeah. I love that. I've had there's a great horror content maker. Her name's Blair Bathory, and her name's Blair, and she's obsessed with the Blair Witch Project, and she's done some great short films in that area all around Blair Witch Project, which I find, you know, I like on the bit, like you said, Mac, like making you want to do, right? Like everybody, like when you counter art that is brilliant and its brilliance doesn't like upset you being like, I'm never going to try to make it be like, I know I could do something like that. There's
right. Oh, that was so fun too. Cause yeah, like, you know, I had like my parents' VHS camera and I was like, oh, that's all that you only need that. You know, that's such a kind of relieving feeling that you don't need all this millions of dollars of equipment to make something. So I think that pushed a lot of independent filmmakers into that direction.
Yeah. I tried similar Renaissance projects with my dad's Super 8 camera from 1973, but my gosh, 55 years, even of good, probably Union American labor, 55, that thing it's not producing proper film anymore. God bless it. It got me with my toy trains at age 3, but
that's fun.
Me trying to do the cutting shots in Portland with the Super 8. So Super 8 cameras are tough to come by. So great to chat with you both about this film. I'm enthusiastic about it. Thematically, beautifully how it looks. Even on I say even on the sound, because I talked to Victoria Studo, who scored this. I said when the sound in the score came into the room, I was listening and being like, wait a second. You're a much bigger character. Like in my head, like the sound coming, I'm like, who are you? Like, I'm supposed to just be watching uncomfortable stuff. But and the reason why I felt it was risky is such an intimate detail with your work, and having that come in and fill that in, another great step. Folks who see on the phone at Raindance world premiere, you'll see it. But everybody, as you can tell, enthusiasm for this film. Matthew Kyle Levine, Kenny Sale, it's great to have you on. Well done. And hopefully some more folks with On the Phone as we go along. Great success with this. I'm really excited for where all this is going for both of you.
I appreciate you, Ken. This was so fun. It went so fast. I thought we just started.
I know it's a great thing too. I got one thing though too. This Knicks thing is getting big out there in New York. I'm out in the mid-Willamette Valley here, and I'm noticing this shit is big. The Knicks fever.
It's
is
crazy.
Incredible right now.
I just did a whole music video that was right in the middle of the chaos. The artist wanted to
watched it. I just watched it.
Oh, really?
Saw it.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, we were really in the middle of the chaos. And like before, everyone was super rowdy and we were just like in the middle of a giant crowd filming everything. And he's super good at, getting everybody interested. And but then at the end when they won, it was like truly a frat party in the streets. Like, people were riding on the back of trucks and, honking and like hanging out on top of the roof and, like putting banners over the buildings and everything. It's really fun. It's exciting. So we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, we're catching during the finals here. The New York Knickerbockers having a historic run, and hey, I'm from the West Coast. Anytime anybody's around, I'm like, what the heck's going on with this? So what's up with the new Dunkin' Donuts commercial? So I got to get my info, some other way. So right. I'll drag you along for it. great work again. Always great chatting with you. Everybody check out Matthew Kyle Levine, the work of Kenny Sale on the phone, and London, England, and others. You're in for a great treat. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Ken.
Thanks.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.